Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman, and this is the Vernor Silver Bullet 2. Silver Bullet 2 is Vernor's hybrid style board built off of the Mini Simmons platform, meaning that it does have displacement in the front of the board and that upturned rail in the forward half of the board, but then it's married to a hybrid outline, also a very subtle single to double concave bottom shape, and as you can see, more foiled out than a Mini Simmons and also more rocker than a Mini Simmons. When you look at this board, especially when you just look at the outline, when you're looking at it, whether you're on video here or if you're looking at a photo of it online, you immediately see the similarities in the outline between this and the Lost Rocket, either the V2 Rocket or the original OG Rocket. You go to the back, the tail obviously is very similar to that board with the round tail here to the fangs on the outer side of the tail right here. It has a bullet nose, much like that board, and also the rocker is actually pretty similar to that board as well. Where this board differs from the Rocket, obviously is going to be in the bottom shape of the board. The Rocket has a very substantial single concave, a lot of tail kick. This board, rather than going single concave, it goes with the displacement hull forward section, although very, very slight. Everything on this board is very subtle. From the displacement forward section to the single concave in the center of the board to the double concave in the tail of the board. If you were to look at the Mini Simmons being the most dramatic of the displacement hulls, to the Vernor double barrel shotgun being the most dramatic of his single to double concave boards, this would be one of the more subtle boards that takes all of those different features and blends them in together into one board. This board is a good step up from a Mini Simmons for, I would say, several different reasons. The number one of them being is that it has that Mini Simmons entry, that hull entry into the front of the board. The next one being is that it has more curve throughout the entire board, so whether it be more outline curve or more rocker, both in the nose and the tail, that added curve in the board is going to allow it to fit into curvier waves better. Basically, boards turn on their curves, and so whether it's outline curve or bottom curve, this board's going to fit into a rounder wave and complement that wave shape and then feel freer in that wave than a board that was flatter with a more parallel outline. The next thing that makes this a good board to transition to from a Mini Simmons when the waves are better is the tail. When you start riding a Mini Simmons a lot, or a board that has a bigger tail block, if you go to a board that has a narrow tail block, it's going to feel different than that board. So there's two different ways that you could take power out of the board and fit it into rounder waves. One of them is to bring the tail in and make it narrower. The other one is to just add more tail kick in the board. And so what David did on this board, on the Silver Bullet 2, is that he left a lot of that tail width in. Again, not as much as a Mini Simmons. A Mini Simmons tail would be, again, out to about here in the length of this board. This board's a 6'2", and believe it or not, a Mini Simmons tail will be about that wide on a 6'2". So it is narrower than a Mini Simmons, but it's still wider than a performance shortboard or a standard hybrid tail. So it gives you, when you want to get on the tail and drive off your back foot, it gives you something substantial to push on. This board that we're holding here is Vernor's high-end construction. It's got the Marco Foam EPS 2-pound density blank with resin research, epoxy resin. Also the Vector Net carbon mesh on the tail, not only under the pad but also forward of the pad in the event that you're not on the pad and you're harfing down on your heel right here, you're not going to cave the board in. These are some new pads that we just got in. These are the Dino Astrotech pads, available in all white, or they also have this like color explosion one that's all these crazy colors. It's a flat pad, and as you can see, it's got a lot of width coverage and then also a lot of length coverage. And so on a board with a fuller tail block, it's a really good choice, especially if you like a flatter pad. Continuing on with the construction, one of the things you'll find on all David Vernor's higher end EPS epoxy boards is this Vernor Ibm Suspension System. You can find it on his boards when you see this distinctive black V on the bottom of the board. A lot of people think that this is just some people actually even think it's just a Vernor logo, the V logo. But what it is Inside the board, David routes a very thin groove from the rail through both fin boxes to the center line, and then in the other direction out to the other rail, drops in an 1 1/16 deep stringer down into the board of carbon, going in both directions, and then caps it with a carbon strip in both directions. Also on these rail boxes, on the forward rail boxes, he's using the Futures jig and router bit to cut away a little bit of the stringer and actually tie those boxes, both the rail boxes and then also the trailer box, into those carbon stringers, so that it ties it all in as one and then caps it with that carbon strip. What this is doing is it's reducing or eliminating the torsional flex of the board. So that torsional flex is where you're bleeding your speed and losing a lot of forward drive and forward speed from your surfboard. This Ibm system reduces or eliminates all of that flex and transfers it all into down the line speed. So check it out. That's what this V is, and that's what's actually happening underneath that carbon strip that you can't see. David also recommends, if you want to get even more speed from your board, to use the Futures Vector foiled fins, which has a positive foil on the outside and a negative foil on the inside on the side fins, and that's going to tie in with this system really well and give you even more speed out of this Ibm suspension system. This board fits into your quiver above a Mini Simmons, above a true groveler. It can be your only board if you live in a place with decent waves. It has rocker, it has really forgiving rails. And you know, we talked a lot about the Lost Rocket. You know, how does this board compare to the Lost Rocket? The Rocket's a little bit more up on top of the water and a little bit more precise when you need it to be. This board has a more glide down the line, and it also has a more forgiving rail in the turn. So whether you are doing a turn last minute or whether you are, you know, fumbling and falling or miss a drop, this board will save you more often than not, because every edge up forward is round or upturned, so it doesn't knife in and trip you up. So it's a little bit more forgiving than the Rocket and a little bit more in the water and glidey than the Rocket. The Rocket will have a little bit more maneuverability on the way upper end and have a tiny bit higher speed, where this board is going to make up for it in the forgiveness and that glide, that through the water displacement forward section that feels nice and slippery through the water. So a little bit different feel between the two boards. It's the Silver Bullet 2 from Vernor. If you have any more questions about this board, you can call us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can check out our website, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks again for tuning in.